a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2 is a 2018 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Deadpool, distributed by 20th Century Fox. It is the 11th installment in the X-Men film series, and a direct sequel to the 2016 film Deadpool. The film is directed by David Leitch from a script by Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Ryan Reynolds, with Reynolds starring in the title role alongside Josh Brolin, Morena Baccarin, Julian Dennison, Zazie Beetz, T.J. Miller, Brianna Hildebrand, and Jack Kesy. In the film, Deadpool forms the Team X-Force to protect a young mutant from the time-traveling soldier Cable. Plans for a sequel to Deadpool began before that film's release, and were confirmed in February 2016. Though the original creative team of Reynolds, Reese, Wernick, and director Tim Miller were quickly set to return for the second film, Miller left the project in October 2016 due to creative differences with Reynolds and was soon replaced by Leitch. An extensive casting search took place to fill the role of Cable, with Brolin ultimately cast. Filming took place in British Columbia, Canada, from June to October 2017. During filming, stunt woman Joy S.J. Harris died in a motorcycle accident. The film is dedicated to her memory. The film's score is the first to receive a parental advisory warning for explicit content, and the soundtrack also includes the original song, Ashes, by Celine Dion. Deadpool 2 was released in the United States on May 18, 2018. It has grossed over $734 million worldwide, making it the sixth highest-grossing film of 2018, as well as the third highest-grossing R-rated film and the third highest-grossing X-Men film. It received positive reviews from critics, who praised its humor, performances, story, and action sequences, with some calling it better than the first film, although a feeling of cynicism drew some criticism. An extended edition was released in August 2018, and a recut, page 13 version of the film will be released theatrically in December 2018. A sequel, Deadpool 3, is in development. Plot: after successfully working as the mercenary Deadpool for 2 years, Wade Wilson fails to kill one of his targets on his anniversary with Vanessa, his girlfriend. That night, after the pair decide to start a family together, the target tracks Wilson down and kills Vanessa. Wilson kills the man in revenge. He blames himself for her death and attempts to commit suicide 6 weeks later by blowing himself up. Wilson has a vision of Vanessa in the afterlife, but the pieces of his body remain alive and are put back together by Colossus. Wilson is left with only a skee ball token, an anniversary gift, as a final memento of Vanessa. Recovering at the X-Mansion, Wilson reluctantly agrees to join the X-Men as a form of healing. He, Colossus, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead respond to a standoff between authorities and the unstable young mutant Russell Collins, Firefist at an orphanage, labeled a Mutant Re-Education Center. Wilson realizes that Collins has been abused by the orphanage staff, and kills one of the staff members. Colossus stops him from killing anyone else, and both Wilson and Collins are arrested. Restrained with collars that suppress their powers, they are taken to the Icebox, an isolated prison for mutant criminals. Meanwhile, Cable, a cybernetic soldier from the future whose family is murdered by an older Collins, travels back in time to kill Collins before he ever becomes a killer. Cable breaks into the Icebox and attacks Collins. Wilson, whose collar breaks in the ensuing melee, attempts to defend Collins. After Cable takes Vanessa's token, Wilson forces himself and Cable out of the prison, but not before Collins overhears Wilson deny that he cares for the young mutant. Near death again, Wilson has another vision of Vanessa in which she convinces him to help Collins. Wilson organizes a team called X-Force to break Collins out of a prison transfer convoy and defend him from Cable. The team launches its assault on the convoy by parachute, but all of the members die during the landing except for Wilson and the Lucky Domino. While they fight Cable, Collins frees fellow inmate Juggernaut, who agrees to help Collins kill the abusive orphanage headmaster. Juggernaut destroys the convoy, allowing himself and Collins to escape. Cable offers to work with Wilson and Domino to stop Colin's first murder, and agrees to give Wilson a chance to talk Collins down. At the orphanage, they are overpowered by Juggernaut while Collins attacks the headmaster, until Colossus, who had at first refused to help Wilson due to Wilson's murderous ways, arrives to distract Juggernaut. When Wilson fails to talk down Collins, Cable shoots at the young mutant. Wilson leaps in front of the bullet while wearing the icebox collar and dies, reuniting with Vanessa in the afterlife. Seeing this sacrifice, Collins does not kill the headmaster. This changes the future so that Cable's family now survives. Cable uses the last charge on his time-traveling device, which he needed for returning to his family, to go back several minutes and strap Vanessa's token in front of Wilson's heart. Now when Wilson takes the bullet for Collins, it is stopped by the token and both survive while Collins still has his change of heart. Afterwards, the headmaster is run over by Wilson's taxi driver friend Dopinder. In a mid-credit sequence, Negasonic Teenage Warhead and her girlfriend Yukio repair Cable's time-traveling device for Wilson. He uses it to save the lives of Vanessa and X-Force member Peter, and kills both X-Men Origins, Wolverine's version of Deadpool, and actor Ryan Reynolds while he is considering starring in the film Green Lantern. Cast. In addition to portraying Deadpool and himself, Reynolds provided the voice for the Juggernaut. Juggernaut is credited as being voiced by himself, and was previously portrayed by Vinnie Jones in the 2006 film X-Men: The Last Stand. According to Reese, the creative team on Deadpool 2 felt that appearance did not do justice to the character. Wanting an additional villain for the film to support Firefist for the final fight with X-Force, the writers chose Juggernaut, because he is a force of nature, who was probably the coolest character never to be used in the right way. The character's face was modeled on Leitch's, with Reynolds providing facial capture and his voice. The latter was digitally modulated to make it deeper. Reese added that the character didn't have many lines. He's a man of few words, but he's a man of great anger and forcefulness. Stefan Kapicic voices Colossus, an X-Man with the mutant ability to transform his entire body into organic steel. Kapicic described Colossus as one of the most important characters in the film, requiring a more intense process for Kapicic during recording for the character. He explained that Colossus would continue to try make Deadpool a better person and potential X-Man after doing so in the first film. Unlike the first film, Kapicic also provided performance capture for the character's face on the sequel, while Andrei Tricatiou returned to stand in for the character on set. Leslie Uggams and Karan Soni also returned from the first film as Deadpool's elderly roommate Blind Alan and the taxi driver Dopinder, respectively. Additionally, Eddie Marsan plays the headmaster of the Essex Home for Mutant Rehabilitation, an orphanage. Robert Maillet briefly appears as Sluggo, an inmate of the Icebox who originally had a more prominent antagonistic role alongside Black Tom before both roles were reduced due to the number of villains in the film. Haley Sales and Isley Hervonen respectively appear as Cable's wife and Hope, their daughter, during a flash-forward. And Shiley Kutsina portrays Yukio, Negasonic Teenage Warhead's girlfriend and fellow X-Man. A version of Yukio previously appeared in the 2013 film The Wolverine, portrayed by Rila Fukushima. The film's version of the X-Force team also includes Terry Crews as Bedlam, Louis Tan as Shatterstar, Bill Skarsgård as Zeitgeist, Rob Delaney as Peter, and Brad Pitt as Vanisher. Pitt was considered for the role of Cable before scheduling issues prevented him from taking it. He filmed his Vanisher cameo in 2 hours during post-production. Reprising their roles as the X-Men for a brief appearance are James McAvoy as Professor X, Nicholas Hoult as Beast, Evan Peters as Quicksilver, Ty Sheridan as Cyclops, Alexandra Shipp as Storm, and Cody Smith-McPhee as Nightcrawler. Archive footage of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine from X-Men Origins. Wolverine is used in the mid-credits sequence, with Jackman's permission. This was re-edited for the sequence, and included raw footage shot for that film. Luke Rosella, who portrays a young David Alley in the X-Men-based television series Legion, appears as a young mutant credited as Serial Kid. When Cable travels to the present day, he comes across two rednecks discussing a toilet paper manifesto. This was inspired by a real manifesto written by Reese. which the writers wanted to be discussed in the film by a certain caliber of actor. The characters are portrayed by Alan Tudyk and a disguised Matt Damon, with the latter credited as Dickie Greenleaf. Leitch and writers Reese and Paul Wernick respectively cameo as Icebox inmate, Ground Chuck mutant, a news helicopter pilot, and a news cameraman. Stan Lee was unable to cameo in the sequel, as he did in the first film, and the short No Good Deed, but his likeness was used for a bust in the X-Mansion and for graffiti on the wall. Development. Producer Simon Kinberg revealed in September 2015 that discussions had begun regarding ideas for a sequel to Deadpool, which was set to be released in February 2016. One idea was for the film to introduce the character Cable, who had previously been looked at to appear in the first Deadpool and X-Men: Days of Future Past. Before that, Cable's inclusion in the potential sequel was confirmed by the character Deadpool while breaking the fourth wall in the post-credit scene of the first film. Domino, a character with connections to Cable in the comics, was also believed to be featured in the sequel. By the first film's release, 20th Century Fox had greenlit a sequel, with writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick returning to write the screenplay, though director Tim Miller and producer/star Ryan Reynolds were not confirmed for the sequel at the time. Fox was intent on keeping the creative team together. Miller and Reynolds' involvement was confirmed at the 2016 CinemaCon that April, though Miller had still not formally signed on to direct the sequel. He began work developing the script with the writers, while Reynolds had signed a new contract granting him casting approval and other creative controls. In June 2016, Kinberg expected filming to begin at the beginning of 2017. By August, Kyle Chandler was believed to be in the running to portray Cable. Testing of actresses for Domino had also begun by October, with a short list of actresses under consideration including Lizzie Kaplan, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Sienna Miller, Sophia Boutella, Stephanie Sigman, Sylvia Herx, Mackenzie Davis, Ruby Rose, Eve Hewson, and Kelly Rohrbach. The producers were particularly interested in casting a Black or Latina actress in the role. At the end of October, Miller left the film over mutual creative differences with Reynolds, reportedly based on several factors, including Reynolds' expanded creative control over the sequel, Miller's wish for a more stylized follow-up than the first film, versus Reynolds' focus on the raunchy comedy style that earned the first movie its R rating, and Miller's intention to cast Chandler as Cable, which Reynolds opposed. Fox ultimately backed its marketable star over Miller, who had made his directorial debut with the first film. Miller denied this report, while Reynolds said he could only add that, "I'm sad to see him off the film. Tim's brilliant and nobody worked harder on Deadpool than he did." A week after Miller's departure, Fox was looking at David Leitch, Drew Goddard, Magnus Martins, and Rupert Sanders as potential replacements for the director. Leitch was the strong frontrunner for the role, and signed on a month later. Reynolds, a fan of Leitch's John Wick, said the director really understands those Deadpool sensibilities and where we need to take the franchise, and can make a movie on an ultra-tight minimal budget look like it was shot for 10-15 times what it cost. Writing. The first completed draft from Wernick and Reese was expected around June 2016. Multiple had been completed by January 2017. The pair felt a responsibility to explore the Team X-Force, which includes Deadpool, Cable, and Domino in the comics, but to also keep the film focused on Deadpool. By the next month, the studio was still not happy with the script, with Reynolds and the writers bunkered down, trying to cross the finish line and create something everyone is excited to make. Goddard joined them as a consultant. Reese, Wernick, and Reynolds were credited for the script, the three having split the film scenes between them before passing them around to be rewritten by the others. Reese felt they were able to maintain one voice because of their long history with the character during development on the first film. Deadpool 2 is set, more or less, when the first film ends, and focuses on an existential crisis and a deeply personal cause for Deadpool. Leitch felt that retaining these personal stakes was more compelling for audiences than trying to build the film around global stakes. The writers felt that the sequel was tonally similar to the first film, but wanted to explore a different theme by focusing on a group of individuals and their need for family, with Reynolds explaining that the first movie is a love story masquerading as a comic book movie, and this one is kind of a family film masquerading as a comic book film again. Deadpool spends around half of the film unmasked, which the writers wanted for exploring the more emotional scenes, though Reynolds was reluctant to do this, because he found the makeup required to portray an unmasked Deadpool time-consuming and really uncomfortable. An early idea was to have the film begin 5 years after the first, and explore Deadpool being a father, but the writers quickly decided that this was never, ever going to work, and reworked the idea to explore the character wanting to have a child, but being unable to. Early versions of the script included prominent roles for the characters Black Tom Cassidy and Sluggo, but they ultimately had a supporting role and a brief appearance, respectively. The villain Mr. X was also included in early drafts, but was cut due to the number of villains already in the film. The mutant inmates of the icebox were going to be explored more by having Cable breaking into the prison cause their power-dampening collars to malfunction. This was removed from the script due to not being feasible within the film's budget. Leitch fought to include more aspects of Cable's backstory in the film after the writers chose to mostly ignore it due to it being convoluted. A painting of Cyclops which would have acknowledged that character as Cable's father was ultimately cut, but the techno-organic virus that Cable is inflicted with and his daughter Hope are depicted. The film features contradictory connections to the various films of the franchise, which Leitch acknowledged as confusing, but said that the issue had not really been discussed during development since the Deadpool films are considered their own entity, in a way, and the character of Deadpool allows them to be flexible with the timeline, per se. Reese and Wernick preferred to use jokes in the film that only certain members of the audience would understand, though Reynolds would not allow some to be used if he thought not enough people would enjoy them. Following the announcement of the proposed acquisition of 21st Century Fox by Disney in December 2017, the film includes several Disney-related jokes including a running gag about the Disney film Frozen. However, Fox did make the producers remove a joke from the film that directly acknowledged the deal, which Reynolds said was a wise decision. Other cut jokes included many bizarre characters interviewing to join the X-Force, such as an idea to have Chris Evans reprise his role as the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four films. Pre-production. Reese and Wernick confirmed in January 2017 that Stefan Kapasik's Colossus, Brianna Hildebrand's Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and Karan Sonisto-Pinder would be returning from the first film to make at least an appearance. By the beginning of March 2017, Michael Shannon had been in the running to portray Cable, but no longer could due to a scheduling conflict. David Harbour had screen tested for the role, and Pierce Brosnan was believed to be in negotiations for a part in the film, potentially Cable. Reynolds announced shortly after that Zazie Beetz had been cast as Domino. Shannon was in the running to portray Cable again later in the month, and was considered the frontrunner ahead of a shortlist that also included Harbour. Brad Pitt was also considered for the role, but had moved on. Leitch soon addressed the potential casting of these actors, saying Shannon would make an incredible Cable. If that happens, I would be through the roof. And on Pitt, we had a great meeting with Brad. He was incredibly interested in the property. Things didn't work out schedule-wise, but I think he would have made an amazing Cable. At the end of March, Morena Baccarin confirmed her return from the first film as Vanessa, and expressed interest in exploring the character's copycat persona from the comics in the sequel. Josh Brolin emerged as a surprise contender to play Cable in April, ahead of Shannon and Harbour, and was officially cast in the role. Brolin also portrays the Marvel Comics character Thanos in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Also in April, Leslie Uggams confirmed that she would be reprising her role of Blind Al from the first film, while Fox gave the sequel a June 1, 2018 release date. Noting the release date, Leitch wanted to ensure that the film was worthy of a summer tentpole movie, and we knew we were going to be wedged in between some big films, specifically wanting to expand the action and make the general feeling of the film bigger than the first one. However, He wanted the film to have the same DNA as the original, in terms of the tone and the fun. I love that challenge, of combining that with the increased scope. The film uses Deadpool's fourth wall breaking to reference this release period, with Leitch calling these comments definitely fresh and timely when they come up. In May 2017, Fox was reportedly looking to use a post-credits scene at the end of Deadpool 2 to introduce several other members of X-Force who would go on to star alongside Reynolds, Brolin, and Beetz in an X-Force film. Casting for the characters, Sunspot, Feral, and Shatterstar, would take place over the coming months, though Reese denied the accuracy of this report. Later, T.J. Miller confirmed that he would return from the first film as Weasel, and described the sequel as even more Weaslicious than the first. He noted that Reynolds and the writers had really put the time in on the script to meet their own expectations for the sequel as well as those of fans. Jack Kesy also joined the cast as Black Tom Cassidy. In June, Shiley Kutzner was cast in a key role for the film, Negasonic Teenage Warhead's girlfriend Yukio. The writers felt free to use the character in whatever way the film needed due to her having only a minor role in the comics. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?